All right, very good. Welcome, everybody online to our session on technical solutions for secure water supplies and introduction to technical solutions. Before we start, I would like to start with a couple of housekeeping rules. Your microphones and cameras are switched off. After the presentations, we do have a Q&A session. Here, there will be a possibility to switch on your cameras if you have a question and your microphone as well. This is something that we will be doing. If you have questions, also please feel free to post them in the chat, and we will collect them and try to answer as many of them as possible within the Q&A session. Please note that we also have a translation service. The translation service you find in the bottom of your screen. There is a possibility there directly, or click on the three dots, and there you have the possibility for translation. There is translation in French and in Russian. So, with that out of the way, welcome again to our session, or our seminar. Which is consisting of 3 different sessions. They will be brought to you over the course of this week, and they are organized by the International Water Management Institute, Veolia, and the German development agency GIZ. Today's session, the first of the 3, an introduction to technical solutions, is jointly organized by the International Water Management Institute and the GIZ. My name is Dan Schurer. I work for the GIZ in Germany on transboundary water management. The GIZ works on many topics in the water sector in over 50 countries in the world. And some of the topics are water security, water supply, access to hygiene and sanitation, wastewater treatment, and transboundary water management, just to name a few. As said, we organize this together with our colleagues of IMI. So over to you, Maha, for a short introduction.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Maha Jabi. I am a regional researcher, sustainable and resilient water systems. I'm based in Jordan. So just a quick introduction about IBI. The International Water Management Institute is a non-for-profit research for development organization. We do work in 40 plus countries. Our HQ in Sri Lanka, where we have over 14 offices in the region. Mostly global south. So we do work with government, civil society, private sector organization, working on different topics related to sustainable use of water, agriculture, land resources, knowledge, services, and products for capacity strengthening, as well as dialogues and policy analysis to support sustainable implementation of water management solutions for agriculture, ecosystem, climate change, and inclusive economic growth. Thank you, Stan. Over to you.
Thank you, Maha. So before we dive into the session today, I would like to note that this seminar is part of the larger seminar series of CIBI. This seminar series is called Bridging Borders, Water for a Peaceful and Sustainable Future. The series actually includes 9 different seminars, and all of the seminars have 3 different sessions, so also our seminar. They will be brought to you over the course of this whole week in different formats, online like today, hybrids, and also in presence here in Stockholm. Today's session is part of the seminar, as you see on the screen here, Technical Solutions for Secure Water Supplies to Help Build Stability and Peace. And this session today is then the introduction to technical solutions. The other sessions that we are organizing are a session on Tuesday, which is a hybrid session on circular economy applied to water, and a session on Wednesday, which is only in presence here in Stockholm, which is about the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus in a transboundary context. For the introduction, and especially for the introduction of the session today, I will hand over to you, Maha.
Thank you, Stan. So maybe first introducing the seminar, the technical solution for secure water supplies to help stability and peace, where, as my colleague Esther mentioned, there are 3 sessions. So the seminar focuses on innovative and resource efficient technical solutions in areas such as transboundary water management, circular economy, remote sensing, efficient use of water, the Wi-Fi nexus, recycling, deep groundwater, and desalination. So the seminar will examine how technical solution can promote cooperation among stakeholders, reduce dispute and conflict over water resources, ensure fair distribution, allocation, and management of water resources, and promote access to safe and clean drinking water and adequate sanitation. So for this specific session, which is we are in now, we will explore 3 examples of technical solutions that address water management, allocation, and sharing. Such technical solutions are an important tool in dealing with growing water demand and poses challenge to the sustainability of current methods for managing water resources, especially in developing countries. So it is essential to ensure the responsible management of water resources at the watershed levels, as well as in transboundary contexts, to ensure water secure future in which technical solutions play a key role. So the technical solution presented to you today touch upon water-centric Wi-Fi nexus tools and technical solution models and DSS in transboundary contexts from Central Asia, an instrument in transboundary water cooperation in Africa, and potential of deep groundwater as alternative fresh water sources. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Susan Schremer, she's the head of Water Governance Department and an associate professor of water law and diplomacy at IHE Delft. So Dr. Schremer will give us a keynote speech on technical solutions to the water crisis and guides us through the technical input and the Q&A session. Over to you, Dr. Susan.
Thank you. Welcome also from my side. Happy to see all of you here. Just waiting for my slides, just a second. That's me, yes. Okay, here we are. You can actually jump to the next slide immediately. Before we jump into the technical presentations that we'll have to do today that will help us understand some of the great technical solutions that are out there, I just want to give you a bit of a broader picture and maybe embed what we'll be discussing in this session in the bigger picture. Because why are we discussing technologies? Why are we discussing nexus approaches? Why are we discussing the need to actually advance technology? That's not for technology itself, but it's because of the water crisis that we're facing globally, a crisis that's actually rapidly deteriorating. We're seeing climate change affecting water resources, but we're already seeing people suffering even if there wasn't climate change. Already now we have, as most of you will know, 3.6 billion people that have inadequate access to water for at least parts of the year. We have a number of city inhabitants that lack access to safe drinking water. That's actually not being reduced in spite of a lot of the efforts that we've seen in the last year. We've scarcity increasingly becoming an issue also in areas where there wasn't scarcity so far. We do see plastic pollution that's flowing from rivers into lakes. We're seeing more and more dams being built, but maybe, at least in some places, not in the way they should be built. So we're seeing people suffer from insufficient access to clean water, but also from deteriorated ecosystems. We're seeing ecosystems themselves being at risk, but also as a consequence in many of the transboundary water basins around the world, we're seeing countries, not only people, not only sectors, but entire countries increasingly compete over water resources. Next slide, please. The good news is that we've seen a lot of innovation in the past years, in the past decades, but especially in the last years. We've seen technologies advance when it comes to water efficiency, to water conservation, smart irrigation systems, various water efficient appliances. We've seen improvements when it comes to leak detection, so very sort of practical on the ground advances. We've seen improvements when it comes to water quality monitoring, but also improving the actual state of our water resources in terms of quality. We're seeing promising nexus approaches that try to integrate sectors more, dealing with the different competing effects that they can have. We do see improved technology when it comes to wastewater recycling, reuse, recharge, at some very local, low-hanging fruit type of level, but also at a very high technological level. If you look at, for example, the forced treatment level that's increasingly being implemented in a lot of European countries and elsewhere. Desal is something that is very often presented as an important technological advance, at least for more localized water supply. We're seeing remote sensing having made a huge step ahead over the last years, but also AI and all the predictive analytics that come with it. So we would think that we're actually in a place where we have a lot of technological solutions at our hand that can help us overcome the water crisis. Next slide. There are a few challenges, though, that don't have so much to do with the technology itself, but with the governance around the technology. And this is really what I would hope you all keep in mind while you hear the next presentation, so that afterwards we can have a discussion how we can really use the technological advances that we've been seeing in the past years for the benefit of people. Because technology is not the lack of technology is not really the main reason for the water crisis, which the other way around also means that technology won't be the silver bullet that gets us out of the water crisis. As we've often heard, the water crisis is to a large extent a governance crisis, a crisis of a lack of legal frameworks, capacity gaps, financial resources. So the question is, how can we use technology that is one solution to many of the water challenges we're facing to get us out of the bigger crisis? So how can technology also become part of an integrated approach that helps us overcome this crisis? Next slide. And I think that the other direction. One more. Yes. Thanks. And I think that brings us to the bigger picture that we should keep in mind when we discuss technology, and where we should think how we can harvest the benefits that all these new technologies such as AI actually provide. And this is questions around equitable and fair access to technology. How do we make sure that the most vulnerable communities, marginalized communities, benefit, for example, from better treatment, even if they don't have the financial or the technical capacity to do that? How can we also ensure access rights and ownerships and really everyone benefiting, for example, from data, from information that we can harvest from Earth observation, from AI, and that now often is actually, let me say, stuck at certain levels of government and is not really benefiting all communities? How can we maybe also control the use of technology by governments, and how can governments control the use of technology by a lot of the private companies? Because if we're honest, a lot of the remote sensing, a lot of the Earth observation technology is not in the hands of governments, but in the hands of others. And how can we overcome questions of political willingness? So how can we govern technology, but also use technology to better address broader governance challenges? Next slide. And that brings me, I don't want to spend more time because I'm very excited about the technical presentations that we'll hear, but that takes me to the way ahead. I think the key message why we're here and why we've all gathered in this technology session is that we do believe that technology does bring promising developments. There is a lot that's happening, a lot that's on the way to address the water crisis. A lot of harvests or a lot of gains have been harvested in the last years, but there are still a lot of challenges. And I think we need to increasingly not only look at the challenges in terms of there is a lack of technology, but we need to look at the challenges relating to equitable and fair access, because a lot of technologies are out there, but not everyone can benefit from them. So I hope we can also embed this session and the technical discussions really in the broader governance picture around political willingness and the availability of capacity, including financial, to overcome these challenges. And with that, in my next slide, I would like to conclude, and I'm very curious to hear the technical presentations before I'll later guide you through the session and the Q&A part. So if you have any questions now already or during the presentations that will follow, please put them in the chat and we'll follow them. Thanks a lot. Okay, and with that, I would hand over to our first technical presentation. We're moving to Central Asia. We're moving to IMI Central Asia. Safar Gafurov will be speaking to us about some of the work that he's been doing specifically in Central Asia and how that can help us address the water crisis more broadly. So Safar, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see me. If you can, yes. Thank you very much for introducing Suzanne. So, good afternoon, everyone, dear participants. So, I will be discussing about some of our project activities in Central Asia, focusing on best technical solutions and best nexus type of activities that we are implementing in the region, and also considering transboundary water cooperation. So, if you can move next slide, please. So this slide provides an overview of IMI and its new, strategy that we have recently developed. And for more information, you can visit the web link that we have, on the internet. So Maha also informed talked about this. So I don't want to talk in this slide more. So can you go to the next slide, please? Slide shows the overall picture of IMI's activity that we have implemented in the region. So since its mission began, in the region, IMI Central Asia, in 2001. So we have implemented nearly 30 projects in different types of, directions. And this map, on the right side shows the main locations. Yes.
Just quickly, it is a little bit difficult to hear. Could you try to talk more directly in the microphone, maybe a little bit closer to your laptop?
Yeah, okay, great. So hope it is fine now. Is it better?
It's much better. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. So and also, besides the locations of the map, you can also see the main, activities and topic-wise what we have, what kind of projects we have implemented in the region, and offering solutions for improved water management, producing impactful, public publications, and also contributing to policy interventions in the region. So we have been very successful in providing some key recommendations, updating the policy level. So, and also have been working on 6 projects on climate change. If you can move to the next slide, please. So, the next slide provides an overview of water-related, risks in Central Asia that is, current status provided by World Resource Institute, and also focus is given in this slide is on transboundary water resources. Yes.
We still hardly hear you. There is like a back and forth cut in the audio.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can fix the mic you have, or can you try, please?
Yeah, let me just quickly see if I can do that. Is it better now? No?
Not clear yet.
Clear yet. Can you hear now better? Hello, can you hear me?
It is still...
Maybe I can loudly. Is it okay?
It seems better. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then I will give it, louder. So, and also, this slide shows how water is shared among different countries in the region, in the quantity-wise, in percentage-wise. You see, you have, different types of, geographical context, upstream and downstream. So upstream has its own interest on water use, and downstream has its own interest in water use. And also there is some information on, the expected deficits in the region in terms of water, availability and also water resources due to different types of factors and impacts on, into the water resources. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So this slide, talks about the challenges in nexus context. nexus contact is crucial, for sustainable water management in the region, and we have interconnected issues actually, water, food, and environment, and also food systems. So the region is under extreme pressure due to climate change and also other changes that is, impacting to water availability in the region. National and regional institutions struggle, particularly in transboundary water, in transboundary basins, to really understand what are the interconnectedness between different types of sectors. And also investors are, sometimes not very sure how and where to really invest to overcome some of the challenges in the region. And also there is critical issues on women involvement in water resource management in indigenous areas. And the other challenges that we have in the region is data limitations, tools and models that really in need of improvement and advancement to overcome some of the challenges to better manage water resources. So we can move to next slide, please. So this slide focuses on the data sets in the data sets that we are, that we these days practice. I mean, how we store, how we collect. During Soviet Union time, all this information data has been collected in, analog form, like in papers. So we need to consider in rescuing this type of data that we have wealth of information, but it's, in danger of we can perhaps lose if we don't digitalize, if we don't have, in digital form of this kind of data sets. So that's why there is a lot of efforts being done by different projects, and particularly in one of our projects, we have been working on, advancing this data storage, this digitalization, for example, development of decision support systems for better water allocation in not only one country, but also in, Central Asian countries, in transboundary countries. So this will help us to have, in a digital form of data and information that can really help us to move forward in, making better analysis and fast decisions and provide meaningful information for decision makers. So next slide, please. So the other slide shows the nexus model that we have been working in Central Asia. This is also transboundary type of basin. We are implementing Python-based water resource modeling that have been developed together with the University of Manchester and EMI. So this considers different types of sectors and aspects, to really think how we can better manage available resources in particular basin, considering the impact of one sector to another sector. So provides optimal solutions. Optimal solutions for water allocation, water use, and future projections as well. So some of the results that we have achieved so far for this basin is highlighted here. So and this is being further developed to have future projections as well, how we can really manage dams, reservoirs, when to release water resources, and how to use water resources in agricultural system and water resources for other demands as well. Thank you. Next slide. So the other board, if you can click, I don't think if so one of the important activities that Suzanne also was mentioning about water storages, which is crucial actually to identify and understand how much and what kind of water storage we have in particular basins. So this is one of the areas that shares water resources between three different countries: Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. So we are mapping alternative water storages to understand how much water storages we have in particular basin. and how this kind of, base water storages can really help us in terms of, when we have drought years, and also when we have floods, how we can really use these water storages to protect and also to provide water resources in health drought years. If you can move to the next slide, please.
Safar, can you also, Safar, sorry, can you speed up a little bit so that we have time for the other speakers as well? Thank you.
Yes, I'm nearly finished. So this is out of this work, we are just developing a tool dashboard online for decision makers and investors so that they can use for their decision, purposes. So next slide, please. So this is the other activity that we developed to have data for actually next type of strategies. So we developed information from global data sets and validated and made the bias correction. So it's online available for the region. So this is under Savannah project, and we have 5 different countries in Savannah, Savannah area countries. So the data is available, working perfectly, fine, so that researchers and academic students, decision makers can use going to the web link that is provided here. Next slide, please. So this is the important message that I want to bring. The first one is the recognition of individual prioritization, for effective cooperation and collaboration. So we must also think about, focusing on disaster risk reduction and trust building among stakeholders to foster cooperation, and also developing a strategic vision and formal agreements, that will help to address political complexities that will have transboundary context. Additionally, capacity building and stakeholder engagement are essential for empowering communities and ensuring the successful implementation of our initiatives. So finally, I want to say that protection and sustainable management of water resources should remain at the forefront of our efforts to secure resilient future for our region. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer any questions if you have. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Safar. Thanks a lot. It was very interesting to see how much work has been done in Central Asia. And I think a lot of people are aware how much data gathering, how much modeling there has been done. Still, I think generally for all of us to think about, it begs the question, how can we make sure that this really contributes to better managing water resources for ecosystems, as you rightly point out, as one of the key aims, but also for people. So I hope we'll get to that later in the chat or in the discussion. And I'd be curious for others, if you have ideas from your region, you can put that in the chat. We are now moving to West Africa. I'm very happy that we have with us for the next presentation, Sungalo Kone from the Niger Basin Authority, who's working on similar challenges there in a very different context. And the floor is yours, please.
Merci à tous. Et je suis, comme le dit Kone Sungalo, au nom donc du secrétariat exécutif de l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Je voudrais partager avec vous l'expérience de l'ABN dans la gestion transfrontalière des ressources en eau. Prochaine diapo. Diapo suivante. Voilà, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas l'autorité du bassin du Niger, c'est un organisme de bassin transfrontalier de 9 pays membres, 7 pays en Afrique de l'Ouest et 2 pays en Afrique centrale. Il s'agit essentiellement du Bénin, du Burkina Faso, du Cameroun, de la Côte d'Ivoire, de la Guinée, du Mali, du Niger et du Tchad. Les 9 chefs d'État de ces pays ont mis en place cette organisation pour, si vous voulez, coordonner la gestion conjointe de l'ensemble des ressources du bassin du Niger. Et la mission qui a été assignée à cette organisation, c'est de promouvoir la coopération entre les pays membres et assurer le développement intégré des ressources du bassin. Et les enjeux sur le bassin sont énormes, notamment la sécurité alimentaire, la sécurité énergétique, l'adaptation au changement climatique et la paix. Prochaine diapo. Alors, quels sont les enjeux sur le bassin du Niger? Comment se présentent donc ces enjeux? Effectivement, la croissance de la population augmente les besoins en eau des populations. Il y a aussi l'augmentation de la pression sur les ressources en eau et des ressources naturelles du bassin. Et dans ce même bassin, nous constatons la dégradation des eaux et des sols. Face à cette situation, il est évident qu'il y a des risques de conflit pour avoir accès donc aux ressources de ce bassin-là. Au regard de la mission que les chefs d'État ont donnée à l'autorité du bassin du Niger, nous pensons que l'ABN apparaît comme un outil efficace de préservation des conflits, de prévention des conflits et de préservation de la paix. Prochaine diapo. Alors, pour organiser donc cette mission, l'ABN s'appuie sur 9 points. Il s'agit de la gouvernance, premièrement. Deuxièmement, il y a la planification du bassin. Et troisièmement, les outils techniques. Si vous préférez, je vais commencer d'abord par les outils techniques qui accompagnent donc toute la planification et les décisions qui sont mises qui sont demandées. Vous avez en haut et à droite de cette diapo une représentation du réseau hydrométrique sur l'ensemble du bassin versant pour apprécier un peu la quantité d'eau disponible pour les besoins. En haut, à gauche de cette diapo, vous avez la base de données des prélèvements pour dire qu'au sein de notre organisation, nous avons une base de données régionale hydrologique et une base de données régionale aussi des prélèvements d'eau. Ces deux outils importants, les prélèvements et les données hydrologiques, ont permis de développer un modèle de gestion et d'allocation des ressources en eau, c'est ce qui est situé au centre. Ce modèle de gestion et d'allocation nous permet non seulement de planifier l'équipement du bassin, tous les ouvrages qui vont être conçus sur le bassin, mais surtout aussi, ce modèle nous permet de calculer les impacts de tout aménagement que nous faisons sur le bassin. Next. Prochaine diapo. Alors, pour bien mener cette mission, il faut une bonne gouvernance et au niveau du secrétariat exécutif de l'ABN, les décisions sont prises au plus haut sommet. Donc, chaque 2 ans, il y a un sommet des chefs d'État. Chaque année, nous avons un conseil des ministres et nous avons un comité technique des experts qui se réunissent avant chaque conseil des ministres pour préparer donc le conseil. Et le secrétariat exécutif est l'organe d'exécution des décisions et des orientations du conseil des ministres ou des chefs d'État. Alors, tout ceci est encadré par une charte de l'eau qui donne les règles et les méthodes de gestion donc, de ces ressources de l'eau. Et cette charte de l'eau a 5 annexes. Une annexe sur la protection de l'environnement, une deuxième annexe sur le règlement d'eau pour la gestion coordonnée des barrages. La troisième annexe, c'est la notification des mesures projetées. Et là, pour cette annexe, vous me permettez d'être un peu plus clair, c'est qu'au niveau des 9 pays, lorsqu'un pays a un projet susceptible qui demande le prélèvement d'eau, ce pays a l'obligation donc de notifier son prélèvement au secrétariat exécutif qui utilise son outil de simulation des impacts pour évaluer l'impact de son projet. Et cette information-là est partagée aux 8 autres pays membres qui donnent leur avis sur la façon de mettre en œuvre donc ce projet. Et ça, c'est vraiment important. C'est même l'élément clé qui permet de garantir la paix entre l'ensemble des pays membres. Et nous avons aussi un outil important de gestion coordonnée des barrages qui permet d'orienter chaque gestionnaire de barrage sur la gestion de son ouvrage pendant toute l'année. Au niveau stratégique, nous donnons à chaque barrage une courbe enveloppe dans laquelle il doit gérer son ouvrage. Et au niveau tactique, c'est rester à l'appréciation de chaque barrage pour tenir compte des spécificités locales. Prochaine diapo. Prochaine diapo, s'il vous plaît. Alors, pour donc faire face à tout ceci, il était important pour l'ensemble des pays de se donner une stratégie d'aménagement du bassin. Nous avons consulté donc l'ensemble des pays membres avec leurs besoins et mis en place un plan stratégique 2013-2024. Nous sommes à la fin donc de ce plan stratégique et actuellement, nous sommes en train d'évaluer donc ce plan stratégique 2013-2024 pour donc prévoir le prochain plan stratégique. Et je vous dis que cet aménagement stratégique du bassin compte environ 350 actions pour un coût de 7,2 milliards de dollars. Et à l'intérieur donc de ce plan stratégique, nous avons des actions directement liées au climat, donc un plan d'investissement climat qui coûte 3,11 milliards de dollars. Vous comprenez que le financement de ces actions reste un défi pour l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Et actuellement, nous avons convaincu l'ensemble des États qu'il faut mettre en place un fonds régional d'adaptation au changement climatique. Le processus est en cours. Nous avons déjà sensibilisé l'ensemble des 9 pays. Ils ont donné tous leur accord de la pertinence donc de ce fonds pour qu'on puisse adresser donc l'ensemble de nos projets. Et pour réussir donc cet engagement, il est important que chaque partie joue sa partition, notamment les partenaires techniques, les décideurs politiques, les bénéficiaires même des actions, etc., etc. Donc, les mots-clés pour cette présentation sont essentiellement en situation de gestion d'un bassin aussi complexe que l'autorité du bassin du Niger. Il est important que l'ensemble des acteurs soient impliqués, que ce soit les décideurs politiques, que ce soit les chercheurs pour nous aider à développer les outils techniques, que ce soit les acteurs de développement, les bénéficiaires et les partenaires techniques et financiers. Deuxième message clé que nous voulons partager avec vous, c'est qu'il faut une gouvernance et une planification qui est partagée par l'ensemble des acteurs. Et enfin, il est important pour nous de mettre en place un système qui puisse s'autofinancer, d'où le processus de la mise en place de notre fonds. Donc voilà très rapidement l'expérience de la BEN que je voudrais partager avec vous. Je sais que ça a été très condensé, mais je suis disposé à répondre à toutes vos préoccupations. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Koné. Bon, c'était vraiment intéressant de voir comment la BN utilise les données, les informations, vraiment la puissance de la technologie pour la gestion d'un bassin intégré. Donc, merci beaucoup pour ça. We're now moving to the third presentation, which unfortunately will only be a video, as our speaker could unfortunately not join or only join by video, but we're happy that Anna van Guttem from Ruden Water has prepared her thoughts for us in a small video, which we'll have a look at now. And in the meantime, please don't forget to pose any questions, but also any thoughts that you might have on the use of technology to address these water challenges in the chat. But first, over to our virtual Anna.
Thank you for having us in this session. My name is Anna van Guttem and I'm a senior geologist with Ruden Water, a company from Norway. Today I want to talk about the potential of deep groundwater as an alternative fresh water source. First, a bit about us. Ruden Water was founded about 40 years ago by Fridtjof Ruden. Since then, the company has left its influence all over the world and has been involved with the drilling of over 1,000 water boreholes. The uniqueness about our company is how we combine expertise and data from the oil industry with applied hydrogeology, allowing to explore for deeper freshwater resources than the traditional methods. Over the years, we have built an important network of partners as you can see on this slide. But what is deep groundwater? Groundwater is recharged into the subsurface by precipitation. All the water that's not run off into rivers or streams or evaporated. This water infiltrates and starts its journey into the ground. Some aquifers only take days or years to be reached, the shallower ones, where other, deeper aquifers take centuries to millennia to be reached by the freshwater. The shallow aquifers are directly influenced by modern-day climate and drought, and potential contamination, where deeper aquifers are shielded from modern-day climate and pollution. This makes deep aquifers more reliable water source. Deep groundwater is traditionally considered an unconventional water resource. Historically, the focus has been on more accessible, shallower groundwater resources. However, as water scarcity becomes an increasingly pressing issue, especially in arid and semi-arid regions, the potential of deep aquifers is being revisited and reevaluated. In 2020, the United Nations emphasized the importance of considering unconventional water resources, like deep groundwater, as viable options to address the global water crisis. The UN's call highlights the urgency of diversifying our water sources to meet the growing demand and ensure water security for all. In the Horn of Africa, the identification of promising deep freshwater aquifers represents a critical opportunity. By turning to these deep reserves, we can provide sustainable solutions to regions that have long faced challenges in accessing clean water. One of Root & Water's missions is to address water scarcity in East Africa by tapping into deep groundwater resources. Our innovative approach leverages data from past oil and gas activities to uncover untapped deep aquifers in the Horn of Africa, offering a sustainable solution to the region's water crisis. By analyzing this data, Root & Water has identified low salinity water at depths of 400 to 4,000 meter depth, water that was previously unknown. This method not only applies on shore, but also has potential for discovering fresh groundwater in offshore areas, using similar data from hydrocarbon exploration. This approach could provide a new, sustainable water supply for coastal regions, helping to alleviate water scarcity where it's most needed. Root & Water's work illustrates how innovative use of existing resources can drive solutions to critical global challenges. Our work has significant outcomes. For example, the discovery of the deep Kimbiji aquifer in Tanzania in 2007, which has the capacity to provide water to more than 2 million people. Also, the company completed a nationwide study for deep groundwater in Somalia, based on oil and gas data. This study is unique, as it is the first time in history the local ministries of petroleum and water collaborated together with the oil industry on a water project. Currently, preparations are in place to plan the first pilot holes to test the outcomes of the study. Lessons learned underscore the importance of exploring deep groundwater aquifers for their vast capacity, resilience to pollution and depletion, and reduced vulnerability to climate change compared to shallow aquifers. Leveraging such resources can bring progress towards achieving multiple sustainable development goals, emphasizing the importance of sustainable water management practices. As we move forward, the identification of promising prospects for deep groundwater aquifers in the Horn of Africa represents a crucial step towards securing sustainable water resources for the region. Our studies have highlighted the potential of these deep aquifers to provide a reliable and significant source of fresh water. The next step in this process is pilot drilling. This will be essential in unlocking these vital water resources, allowing local communities, particularly those in water-scarce areas, to benefit from improved access to clean water. By validating the findings through drilling, we can ensure that the potential of these aquifers is fully realized. It's important to note that many other regions around the world share similar geological conditions. These areas could similarly benefit from studies and exploratory drilling, further expanding the global reach of our efforts. Additionally, there's an exciting opportunity to expand this research by offshore areas. By exploring offshore freshwater sources, we can address water scarcity in coastal regions, offering an innovative solution to an increasingly critical issue. By implementing these steps, we not only unlock the potential of deep aquifers, but also contribute to addressing global water challenges. These efforts will play a significant role in promoting sustainable development, ensuring that communities around the world have access to the fresh water that they need. On deep groundwater efforts, Root and Water currently focuses on East Africa, mainly in the countries Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania. In the north of Africa, many areas are known for the presence of deep aquifers, such as Egypt, Chad, and the Arabian Peninsula. But looking at the rest of the world, there are many areas with a similar geological setting that have the potential for deep or offshore fresh groundwater. This shows the vast potential of this not so unconventional source. Thank you again for this session. If you have any questions after this presentation or in general about our work, feel free to get in contact with one of my colleagues presented on this slide. And with that, I would like to thank you and have a good day.
Thanks a lot also for this presentation. Unfortunately, only by video today, but there was an invitation for all of you who have questions to reach out to Anna and to her colleagues. I think from these three presentations, we've seen that there's ample of technologies out there. There's a lot of development, a lot of progress that has been made over the last years. I think a question that we're also facing in this context is how can we make sure that all these technologies that are out there that can all get us very excited, how we make sure they're really sustainable. And I see there are some questions in the chat on the sustainability of deep groundwater use. I think that's certainly one interesting question to discuss. Anna is unfortunately not here with us today. I'm checking if there are other questions in the chat. Otherwise, I have a question, and I will kick us off if I'm not seeing any other question. I have a question for Safar, actually. Safar, if you can hear me. Your presentation was very interesting to see how the different nexus approaches, the modeling you've done in Central Asia has definitely increased knowledge on the water challenges in Central Asia. I'm wondering, you've listened also to the presentation from West Africa, where we've seen how this information is really being translated into decision making and is shaping a basin organization's ability to take decision. Any thoughts on what's happening in Central Asia in that context, how Central Asia can maybe benefit even more from new technological insights to shape decision making over water, which we know is not always easy in Central Asia?
Yes, thank you very much for this interesting question. This digital information is rarely, developed here in Central Asia. So also for decision making, time consuming. If you need to look at all this, style information and data. Of course, there is some methodologies available, like using simple computer Excel sheets and things like that. But there is a need to advance it and update it type of models and tools so that it's useful and fast as well to make and understand the key challenges and how to move forward. So from that angle, actually, we have been working to think on overcoming this kind of challenges and introducing new advanced models and tools, and also platforms, online open source platforms. So it's very useful for developing countries. So, usually we always think about making it online and available. of course, there is some limitations as well exists, but the thing is to, to show for decision makers the benefit of this kind of tools and informations and platforms, how useful it is to share among, different riparian countries to really understand and really make some, efforts and actions to overcome and meet the challenges and risks. So we have been, developing as a test, type of, models to show them. Once it's, convinced, we don't say convinced, but once it's, understood by different stakeholders, we can then move forward, helping them to bring some additional knowledge on making, agreements to use jointly this kind of decision, for example, decision support systems, or platforms to really use in place to address those challenges that we have. So from that angle, this will really be beneficial for stakeholders to uptake and use for their daily use. And there is a need and there is a room to help them. There is also some local organizations, hydrometeorological organizations, who really work with a lot of efforts. But they need some helps, external helps, and advanced knowledge and international experiences. So that's why we have been active here to bring those, support from different places of the world that we have experienced. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That actually links quite nicely to another question that I'm seeing in the chat, which I would like to pass on to Monsieur Koné. The question how information, how data that's being gathered, that's being developed is actually made available for all. So, Monsieur Koné, peut-être vous pouvez partager un peu une réponse sur la question. Comment est-ce que vous, l'ABN, partagez les données, les informations avec les...
Effectivement, la problématique des données est vraiment essentielle dans tout ce que nous faisons. À l'ABN, il faut dire que la base de données régionales que nous avons s'appuie donc sur le travail de chacun des pays. Les réseaux d'observation et de collecte de données appartiennent aux pays et nous, l'ABN, nous les appuyons en termes de renforcement des capacités et en retour, ils transmettent les données collectées qui sont disponibles sur notre site ABN et qui sont utilisées donc pour élaborer l'ensemble des outils que nous avons faits et les produits qui en sortent de ces outils sont mis à la disposition des pays pour la prise de décision. Mais il faut reconnaître qu'au niveau des différents pays, le financement pour la collecte de ces données est très insuffisant, raison pour laquelle nous pensons donc nous autofinancer à partir du fonds que nous cherchons à mettre en place. Parce que pour nous, à l'ABN, la situation est très claire. Nous avons de grands utilisateurs d'eau sur le bassin du Niger, qui sont les producteurs d'eau potable, les compagnies de production d'eau potable. Il y a les compagnies de production d'hydroélectrique. Il y a les compagnies minières qui polluent l'eau. Et l'eau est la matière première donc, de toutes ces structures. Et pour nous, ces compagnies doivent pouvoir contribuer à la préservation de leur matière première, qui est la ressource en eau. C'est cette dynamique que l'ABN aborde pour pouvoir financer de façon durable donc, la collecte des données et l'élaboration des informations pour la prise de décision. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. I think, unfortunately, in the interest of time, we have to come to a close. We have to finish the sessions really on time. I think that's a shame because I think that's really a topic that lends itself to more discussion. And I think there's really still a way to go for those working more on the technology side and coming up with all these great new advances that we're seeing around the world, that we're seeing presented online, that we're also seeing here in Stockholm, and those trying to implement those on the ground, those really taking them forward to communities, to villages, to basins. And I hope that this session has definitely contributed to this discussion and really given you some food for thought, not only how can we advance technology, but also what certain impacts would be, right? We've heard about the groundwater, the deep aquifers, and I would have loved to have a longer discussion on how this can be made sustainable, but maybe also how certain aspects that were presented by the other two speakers, like the ABN's tools for looking into sustainability, how all those could be combined. But as we have to come to a close, I would like to hand over back to Maha again to give us her concluding thoughts. What's your takeaway message from today's session?
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for the presenter and the great question that we are receiving on the chat. So just quickly, to wrap up, as we saw, like the interdependency between water, energy, and food and ecosystem are particularly interact. Innovative solutions play a pivotal role in enhancing transboundary water cooperation. So by addressing these interconnected challenges, historically, such a solution have successfully facilitated collaboration among countries, as we saw in Central Asia. So examples include integrated water resource management systems and shared infrastructure projects that balance resource use across borders, demonstrating how technology and cooperation can align to achieve sustainable outcomes for all nations involved. The second wrap-up, I would say, like effective transboundary cooperation is crucial for managing competing demands and ensuring equitable water distribution among riparian countries. Like the Niger, the example that we saw. So by leveraging shared water resource knowledge and utilizing various cooperation tools, so these nations have been able to develop and implement successful strategies that promote collaborative water management. Examples of these strategies include joint monitoring systems, data sharing platforms, and multilateral agreements that ensure all stakeholders have access to accurate information and are involved in decision-making process, ultimately fostering sustainable and equitable water use across the basin. So the last wrap-up or takeaway, I will hand over to my colleague Stan, and for the closing as well. Over to you, Stan.
Thank you, Maha. And yeah, maybe then as a last wrap up, let me then talk about the groundwater input. As Anna already said, maybe not so unconventional water source. We saw that in certain contexts of limited shallow groundwater or shallow groundwater of low quality, deep groundwater could be an important freshwater source due to sometimes its vast capacities, due to a high resilience to pollution, but also due to stability, due to its reduced vulnerability, I would say, to climate change impacts. However, as we also saw in the chat, there were quite a couple of reactions on it. The sustainability question is something that should be discussed and researched further. Bringing it to a close now, I see that we only have a minute left, so a good timing. I would like to invite you to the other two sessions that I presented at the beginning of this session. So the seminar series consists of 3 different sessions. This one, an hour online, and on Tuesday from 9 to 10:30 European time. We have our hybrid session on circular economy applied to water. This is organized by our partner Veolia, with input from the Pacific Institute, from IMI, as well as the Turkish Water Institute. Then on Wednesday, for everybody that is here at the venue in Stockholm, we have an in-person session from 11 to 12:30 on the water, energy, food ecosystems nexus in a transboundary context, with a panel discussion and input from, amongst others, WMO, the African Water Facility, IMI, and the GSZ. For now, I see it's exactly 3, so I want to thank again all of the speakers for their wonderful input. I want to thank Sibi for organizing this series and inviting us to be a part of it. And I would like to thank each and every one of you who has been participating in this session. Thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful water week.